All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoppy Huddle podcast. I'm Jake, and that's Ed. And today we are doing a Week 9 reaction and overview. And this week's going to be a little bit different because we were on the road in Waco for Baylor homecoming, and so we were not able to catch all of the games live. We caught some highlights, but it's gonna be a little more overview of kind of the weekend and the impact of the results versus a kind of a game by game specific breakdown of some of these.
Yeah,
Some
we
of these
can't
games.
travel with 3 monitors and watch all the games all the time when we're actually out.
I know
time.
it's difficult.
Yeah. And we actually picked a good weekend because I think it was kind of an uneventful weekend, a lot of games. I mean, so we picked a good weekend. We didn't miss too many major upsets or anything like that. So, but we could talk about, some of the scores. I had a chance to go back Sunday and a little bit today to go back, do some things, look at some games. And, I think it's, some teams avoided some of the big upsets. So, we'll get to a couple big games that I do want to talk about. But overall,
Yeah.
I think we progressed again another week towards now we're getting into the schedule where we've got some matchups coming up. They're going to decide playoff and conference championships. So where do you want to get started today, Jake?
Well, I want to get started with, I think, something that you have been harping on for a long time. And this was one of the ranked matchups of the weekend, and that's, can we finally get rid of Missouri?
We
are so done with the Tigers and their fake Michigan logo and their fraud team, and they're not any good. Their quarterback Cook's completely gone now with another hand injury. The amount of hand injuries that we've had in college football this year is quite crazy. But Cook's gone, and their backup, this is Drew Pine, right? Yeah, and he was not good.
Yeah,
and we've seen Drew Pine versus Alabama before. That didn't go very well.
Yeah, well, Drew Pine's been bad wherever he's been. So,
yeah, Missouri gone. I do not understand how they're still ranked. It's completely ridiculous. They should not be ranked at all. Nonsense. I think it was partly due to the fact that a lot of the other contenders to be ranked lost. I think UNLV would destroy that Missouri team.
Still ranked?
Yes, they're 25. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's completely ridiculous. Like that UNLV team that lost to Boise would definitely beat the Missouri team.
Arkansas would beat them. I mean,
Arkansas would beat them. Vandy would beat them. Why did Vandy drop out after holding it close against Texas? A top 10 team is supposed to beat a top, a 25 ranked team. Yeah. Why do they lose for holding to their poll expectations? It makes no sense. Vandy will beat Missouri.
That was an embarrassment. Absolutely. I mean, we thought Alabama would win this game. We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
We thought Alabama would cover. We thought this was a chance. And now, and this was a game I didn't get eyes on at all. But, going back, looking at it, I mean, Milroe was fairly efficient. Alabama still, I still understand why they're not rushing the ball better. I mean, Justice Haynes had a decent day, but again, Missouri are frauds, so this score didn't surprise me. Bama, moves on and are getting that much closer to the matchup against their do-or-die matchup against LSU in a few weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Missouri is they're cooked. I don't understand how they were preseason top 10 to begin with, but it's
not in my preseason. If you remember,
yeah, I know.
At the beginning of the year, they were frauds.
I was non-committal on Missouri, if you remember.
Well,
I was like, I don't know
Vandy.
what they're
Reed's right. Missouri did beat Vandy. That's right. That was one of Vandy's.
They did. Yeah, they did. But it seems like those programs have gone in opposite directions since then.
Yeah. And Missouri, unfortunately, though, I mean, they're going to play. They still have South Carolina. They go to South Carolina. They're going to play a weakened Oklahoma team, and they still play Arkansas. So I mean, there's a scenario where they could still have 2 losses. I expect them to get at least 3 though, and maybe 4. If they get 2 losses, this will be the worst. I mean, this team has no business being anywhere near the playoff. Please don't tell me they're a playoff team.
Yeah. I think it was certainly relieving for Alabama fans, I know, to finally, get a blowout that it seems like they should normally be doing, but they're not. Bama kind of kept themselves in that SEC championship race, at least tangentially. I don't know. That's kind of all I got from this game.
Well, Bama couldn't afford to lose that game. That was most important.
Yeah.
After losing to Tennessee, this was a must-win. They then get a bye, I believe, this week, and then they've got matchups against LSU. Bama's schedule gets a whole lot easier. Now, they've gotten through the tough part. They get LSU, which we're going to get to that game in a second. Then after that, it's Mercer for their annual FCS opponent. Then it's at Oklahoma, which we don't think is going to be much of a challenge, and then Auburn. And I know Nacho Man 57 wants to tell us, how Auburn's going to beat Alabama. I don't know if what's going to be left with Auburn to fight out. You never know. This isn't a great team.
I don't have a ton of faith in Alabama necessarily this year. Like, this is an Alabama team that could lose if Hugh Freeze gets in his bag, as they say.
Could be. But everything for Bama season is going to ride 2 weeks from now, November 9th, against that LSU game. And that's going to be do or die, really, for the playoffs for both Bama and LSU now, because lo and behold, that was the game of the week, two ranked teams, and that was a strange game. I mean, that was, are you okay with us moving to that game, Jake?
With the LSU A&M game?
LSU and Texas A&M game. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely kind of wild. It's like, did LSU just not they forget how to play modern defense against a mobile quarterback? Like it looked like an early 2000s game where the old head defensive coach was going up against a running quarterback for the first time, and they just like ran all over. Reed just ran all over them once Wegman got out, and it's like LSU had no answers. And we knew their defense was bad. We knew LSU's defense was not very good, but I didn't expect it to be that bad. And they were doing all right when Wegman was playing horrible, but once Reed was in, they were basically done. And if you can't run the ball, they could just drop a bunch of men in coverage, and A&M could just drop a bunch of men in coverage. LSU couldn't run the ball. And what do we say going into the game is that A&M's D-line against LSU's run game is a horrible matchup, and that proved exactly right. LSU just dropped people in coverage, and Nussmeier threw 3 interceptions, I think, right?
3 interceptions.
4? Or 3
3.
interceptions.
It was 3,
right. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. He was not as good, and, he looked rattled, at least from what I saw at the bar in Waco.
Yeah.
But
it was certainly second half he played pretty poorly, and we knew LSU's secondary was a weakness, but we thought that they could get after Connor Wegman, which they did successfully in the first half. As soon as they went to Marcel Reed, that just seemed to rattle them, and all of a sudden, whoa, wait a second, they had no answer. And the stat of the night was, do you understand, Marcel Reed, do you know what his passing stats were?
Wasn't it like 3 for 3?
Nope. That'd be too good. 2 of 2.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't think he passed that much at all. Like,
no. Texas A&M was down 17-7 at the half. They won this game 38-23, and he went 2 of 2. I mean,
yeah.
So Texas A&M, have you never seen a quarterback that's mobile? I mean, they just ran the ball down their throats a second.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It looked like old school when running quarterbacks were first starting to get introduced, like not like flex bone type thing, but like in the early 2000s when we started running these modern offenses with the running quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And it's like he just, 2 for 2 and he just ran all over them.
So, you got a couple things here. First of all, Brian Kelly proves again he's terrible in ranked matchups outside of Death Valley at night. I mean, so we just need to fade. We need to fade Brian Kelly when he's not in Death Valley. I mean, that's the thing we're learning here. Second thing, I think you got a problem if you're LSU. I mean, if you're Texas A&M, because which quarterback are you going with? Are you going with Reed? Or are you going with Wegman? Because I'm not sure Reed's going to get you across the finish line against Georgia, against Texas, against any playoff games. I mean, but Wegman, are we getting good Wegman, bad Wegman, average Wegman? I mean, yeah.
I feel like Wegman is the Two-Face villain from Batman.
Yes.
Just flip a coin. Is he good or bad? Every night, just flip a coin. Oh, good Wegman. Oh, nice. 250 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Obliterates. Pretty good. I'll flip a coin again. Dang, you're all over the place. Inaccurate. Like,
and you
never
what?
know what's going to happen.
Maybe that's what it is. And maybe Mike Elko is just going to go, you know what, Wegman? if you're going to be great, we're going to play you, and if you're going to be bad, we're going to put in Marcel Reed.
Yeah, but he's got to recognize what kind of night Wegman's having a little sooner, because I think he left him in there a little too long.
I mean, Wegman was 6 of 18. I mean, it was almost to the point that it was almost too late. It was, they would.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Texas A&M is in the driver's seat now in the SEC. I mean, I can't believe we're saying that. Neither one of us.
Which is nuts. That's just crazy to say.
Now, they still have to play. I believe they go on the road to South Carolina. So they still play. Is that game at South Carolina or not? I'm not certain. They go to Auburn. So Auburn's going to have a say in some of this and maybe ruin some people's seasons, whether it's LSU, whether it's A&M, whether it's Texas A&M. Texas A&M has the end of the year game against Texas. So the A&M still got a few hurdles ahead of us. And it wouldn't shock any of us if South Carolina, with their defense, could shut down Texas A&M.
Yeah, the South Carolina, that just seems like the type of game that A&M loses and the type of game that South Carolina wins.
Yeah.
On just like a random after a big win, South Carolina jumps up and gets somebody, and they're spicy this year. They can beat teams. They almost beat Alabama, and it would not surprise me. Bad performance by A&M quarterbacks against, what if their line doesn't, A&M's line doesn't block properly those South Carolina rushers, like that, things could happen.
That game is at South Carolina. That's actually this week's game at South Carolina.
Yeah.
Then they play New Mexico State. Then they go at Auburn, and then Texas. So, I mean, that's not an easy end of the year stretch other than the New Mexico State game. But there's a path now for Texas A&M, perhaps even with one more loss to even get in the playoff. But certainly that matchup is looming large with Texas at the end of the year for the right to probably be in the SEC championship. Never thought I'd say those words this year. Mike Elko's done a great job with that defense. That's the strength of this team. I think we're going to see for the next few weeks. Can they carve enough offense out? Can they just get enough out of that offense of whichever quarterback's playing to get them across the finish line? Wait for that matchup against Texas. That will be fun.
Yeah, it's good. That's going to be a great game.
All
right.
Well, let's leave the SEC. Let's talk about another title contender, Big 12, because I was able to get some eyes on this game on Saturday. And that is
this BYU?
No. I'm sorry, Big 12. I meant Big 10. I'm sorry, I said Big 12. Big 10. Ohio State, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Starting to get a little. Ohio State played a pretty good game against Nebraska. Oregon a couple weeks ago. We thought, okay, it's a good game, good, well played game by teams. But now I'm starting to wonder, after getting a week off and then playing Nebraska, the team that just got bombed by Indiana, they laid a big fat egg on Saturday. And I'm starting to wonder, what's going on there in Columbus?
I have a possibly bold prediction.
Ooh.
You know what Ohio State looks like? They look like every Ryan Day team for the last 4 years.
Oh.
They blow out all the bad teams, and then when they face a team that actually punches them a little bit, they freeze up and they can't handle the physicality. What is Ohio State always good at? The skill positions. They're always good at the skill positions. And where have they struggled this year? It's on the offensive line, the line of scrimmage. They just don't have the push. Especially didn't they lose another lineman in this game out to injury, like a guard?
Yeah.
They're now down 2 of their starting offensive linemen, and that wasn't a deep unit.
Yeah,
there's a possibility on the horizon here where Indiana goes in and embarrasses Ohio State.
Well, and that's assuming they don't go to Penn State this week.
And assuming Penn State doesn't just punch them in the face, because that Penn State team is built a lot like the last 2 years Michigan teams, if you're looking at it. What a star tight end, a good decision-making quarterback, although LR's, I don't know if he's going to be back for next week, but
we'll get to that later. Yeah,
there's some McCarthy in Drew Allar. Like that Penn State team looks exactly like the Michigan team that whooped Ohio State the last 2 years. And if I were Ohio State, I would be very concerned, especially against that defense.
Yeah. Now we're saying all this and watch Ohio State go out and beat Penn State by 20, and all those concerns will be wiped away. And we certainly know they're talented enough. But I'm going to November. I'm more concerned than I was back in September with this team. And you lose at Penn State, like you said, that Indiana team, especially if they get work back, they lose that game. That's a 3-loss Ohio State team that may not make the playoffs.
You lose to Penn State, you may not make the Big Ten title game, even if you beat Indiana.
Well, that's true, but there's still a lot of
because Indiana could just have the one loss and then make the title.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So this is interesting. So Nebraska played them tough. I mean, I never really felt like I never felt like that Ohio State the game was really in doubt. I mean, Nebraska did have a lead.
There was one moment in like the third quarter where it's like, well, maybe if they can keep this up, or is it the fourth quarter? I think
Nebraska had the lead early in the fourth, but then Ohio State got the ball and immediately went down the field, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, I don't really take it seriously. I mean, hats off to Nebraska. I still don't think Nebraska, that offense yet isn't quite. Dylan Rail isn't yet ready for prime time. I mean, he's just not there yet.
You got to upgrade the positions around them, and it looks like they're actually doing that. They got a flip from Florida State of a high 4-star corner. Nebraska did just earlier today.
Yeah,
so
I expect that team next year will be. Next year, Nebraska, I have high expectations for. I expect them to be much more competitive for sure in these games. But
he's still building.
Into Columbus. That was a good effort for him. So
yeah,
where do you want to go to next? What else did you see this weekend? Games you want to talk about?
I would like to talk about the absolute disrespect that BYU has gotten from the odds makers against this UCF team. We all forget that UCF's defensive coordinator was Ted Roof. He's now been fired. Probably should have been fired earlier in the season. BYU goes out there and they win significantly. UCF scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to make the box score look closer than it was. This game was never in doubt. BYU went in there and took care of business. So everyone's like, what about the Heat? I don't know. These guys from Utah. No, it was fine. No problems there. Jake Retzloff played pretty well. He wasn't perfect, but 2 DDs, 0 interceptions, 220 yards. Good, solid performance.
Where's the loss coming on BYU's schedule?
Let me see. What's their schedule?
I'll tell you, it's not. Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. There's not a loss.
Maybe Arizona State. Maybe
if Levitt's playing, right?
If Levitt's playing and they get in like scataboo, clock chewing kind of strategy.
Yeah, I mean, but right now Levitt's still out, right? If I'm correct.
I don't know exactly. Yeah, but that is in like 3 weeks, so they might have him back by then.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, BYU is probably going into the Big 12 title game undefeated, and
so let's play out a scenario here. You know, I think before the season, I think a lot of people would have thought the Big 12 was going to be a one-bid league. They were going to beat each other up.
Yeah.
The winner would get the bid, and that's it. But at this point, I think BYU will finish the season undefeated, be in the Big 12 championship, facing either Iowa State or Kansas State. Maybe one loss, one of those teams, or maybe an undefeated Iowa State team. What are you going to do with that if you've got an undefeated Iowa State, an undefeated Kansas State, undefeated Brigham Young? You're going to get 2 Big 12 teams, and that's going to knock a team out. It's got to, right?
Yeah, it should. And what's going to help with that is the fact that there's been chaos across the sport throughout all the other leagues.
Yeah.
Especially like the SEC has kind of blown itself up. And particularly, if Ohio State ends up on the fringes there or the USC's and Penn State, if some of these other teams like USC's out.
Like I'm worried if I'm Tennessee, if I'm Notre Dame, if I'm Tech.
Like Alabama may not make it and Iowa State and BYU might. Like
a 2-loss Notre Dame's not going to make it in that case. A 2-loss Tennessee may not make it.
Why in the world is Notre Dame ranked over BYU?
Oh, come on.
I don't understand
that question.
It's completely ridiculous, okay? It's completely ridiculous.
And that loss to Northern Illinois looks worse all the time.
Horrible loss. BYU has no losses, and Notre Dame is ranked 1 spot above them. It's completely ridiculous.
Now, I mean, I don't think you can eliminate any teams. I'm looking at the top 25. Everybody pretty much all the way down to maybe, but I mean, almost everybody in the top 25, probably down to almost Colorado is still in it.
I don't think Wazoo's in it.
You don't think they are?
No.
Can they
had to beat. beat Boise. I don't think Wazoo's in because they don't have a conference championship.
Probably Wazoo's, but everyone else is probably still in it. It may
Well,
not
I mean, Missouri's
Missouri's
not going to win out, but
and
yeah.
I'm not sure Army and Navy. I don't think Navy is. Army is either.
Army, if they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, but they're not going to get the group of 5. Boise's going to get that one.
Yeah, but I'm saying if they beat Notre Dame and there's only one Big 12 team, there's a possibility for Army to jump in there as a second G5. Somebody ran the numbers. It's like 11% chance.
There's a chance, but it's a lot.
So it's not zero,
yeah.
but it's definitely higher than.
I just
nothing.
think the Big 12 now. The Big 12 could be a bid, what we call a bid steal. You call that in the in-state tournament. The Big 12 could be steal a bid that
if it's Kansas State versus one-loss Kansas State versus undefeated BYU and Kansas State wins. Both of them are getting in, right?
Both of them are getting in over a 2-loss Tennessee or a 2-loss Notre Dame, I would think. Or is Greg Sankey going to rig this process? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? We may end up with something along those lines.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a debate for another day. But I can see.
Well, there's also the problem of the ACC.
The ACC is going to get 2 teams. Clemson and Miami are on a path where they're going to meet in the championship, and unless Clemson, even a 2-loss Clemson team, if they make it, they'll.
What about SMU undefeated in conference? If they go undefeated in conference, and they.
Yeah. Well, all right, we're going down a rabbit hole.
Sorry, we're going down the weeds here, but so there's definitely just a lot of interesting and crazy scenarios that could happen, and there's gonna be one thing's for certain: there's gonna be a lot of really angry teams at the end of the season, and I just somehow know that Alabama's gonna sneak in and piss everybody off.
Well,
I don't know how it's gonna happen, but it's just always how it works, They
have an elimination game a week and a half against LSU because the losers.
Yeah, they'll get in somehow. They always do.
Yeah.
All right, where else? Let's see. What other games do you kind of want to talk about? Miami obliterated Florida State.
Really was never close. Miami,
even though the score was close till a little bit later. They tacked on some touchdowns at the end, but it was never felt close.
It was never in doubt. And I don't think it wasn't a great statistical game for Cam Ward, but
great recruiting day for the Canes.
It was a good recruiting day for them.
Did you see Mario's press conference afterwards?
I read about it, yeah.
What he said is when he finished up his press conference, he's like, as you can clearly see with the record we have shown this season, there is the trajectory of our team versus all the other teams in this state. And he slammed his fist down and walked off. I'm like, okay, dang, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so Miami continues on their path. I don't think, again, they remind me of Brigham Young. I don't think there's really much in their path to stop them before they get to a conference championship at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if an undefeated team from the Big 12 of the ACC makes it to a conference championship game and they lose, they should get in with 1 loss.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened to TCU 2 years ago.
Yeah, should.
So. Yeah. Notre Dame, speaking of Notre Dame, as we were speaking, I was wrong about Navy. I will admit it. Notre Dame doesn't respect the troops, and they obliterated Navy. Navy's defense just could not hang. There's a different caliber of athlete.
Yeah.
And sometimes with these service academies, you can sort of catch an upset, with the different playing style. But Notre Dame was prepared, and they took care of business. Navy dropped out of the rankings. They should. And,
it looked like a different caliber athlete, which it is.
Yeah.
They just a little bit of that. I was watching some of that game, and I watched a little bit of the Virginia North Carolina game. Reed, I'll get to that in a second. Different athletes. I mean, Notre Dame, while I still not a big believer that they're really competitive for the championship, they're just better than so.
Yeah, I agree. Also want to touch on Boise State UNLV real quick. This is the biggest game, so probably besides Oregon, of Boise State's season. They did not really. Ashton Genty did not have the. They kind of bottled him up. They kept him to only 3.9 yards per carry, which, by the way, is still it's not great, but he still had 128 yards rushing and 1 touchdown, 3 receptions for 11 yards. Just kind of an average night, but he's still on pace to get to like that 2,600 mark and right there with the Barry Sanders record. That UNLV defense is legitimately top 20, 25 in my opinion. They're a really fantastic defense, and they played Genty better than Oregon's defense did. But what that opened up is it left a lot of spots open for Maddox Madsen, who threw for 209 yards and a touchdown. Boise State's really competent on offense. Their defense definitely had some holes exposed. Defense is not perfect, but I think Boise State shouldn't have a ton of trouble, barring injury, which there was a Genty jammed his thumb or his finger at one point in the game. But barring injury, Boise State should cruise the rest of the schedule to the Mountain West title game.
Off my chest.
All right.
Virginia.
Please, the stage.
How can you let Jacoby Criswell and Amari Hampton, I mean, seriously, these are not good players. Mac Brown has been losing everybody but Hanover High School in the last month. And you go up there and you just let them run all over the Hoos. It is embarrassing, absolutely atrocious that you lose that game. I mean, come on. I mean, Jacoby Criswell looked like, Joe Montana. I cannot believe this mess. What is wrong with Virginia football? We need a new coach. This thing needs to end. This does not end with Tony Elliott being replaced. Virginia has no respect. Okay, I've said it. I'm done.
They don't have any respect. I'm going to answer your question for you. They don't have any respect.
I mean, no wonder the fans aren't showing up. It's ridiculous. You cannot do that. You cannot, a game like that, you have to be better than that. This is the Deep South or the South's oldest rivalry. You got to show up better than this. You want to make a bowl game. This is the game you got to win. North Carolina's been terrible. They haven't stopped anybody. Okay? They look like the stop failed to cover. Nobody stops for them. I mean, come on.
They failed to cover like 4 weeks in a row. That's why I bet against them again.
Yeah, Reed said, JMU dropped 70 on that garbage defense. I mean, come on. This is terrible. I mean, UVA, you've got to make a change and find they've got to do a better job. You care about football, you don't, and I really believe you don't care about football at this point. All right, we need to move on and talk about teams that do care about football. I've said it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. I just ditto with everything there.
Anyway,
let's see. Where else would you like to go?
Unfortunately, we were at the Baylor, Oklahoma State, not unfortunately. It was great. We enjoyed the game. Baylor won 38-28. It was a fun afternoon. Baylor could not figure out how to stop Alan Bowman all afternoon, which kept it close.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on with the pass defense there, but
never throw for 300 yards against anybody. And some reason, guys were running wide open in that zone all day. But the good news was nobody could stop Baylor's offense. I mean, Baylor could score at will all day long.
Dude, Sawyer Robinson looked like bona fide, fantastic quarterback in that game.
They better drop a bag for him in the offseason. That boy can play. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And the offense, whatever they got going with Jake Spavital as the OC, was working.
The Bear Raid offense has arrived.
Yeah. And Baylor is scoring a lot of points. And I said it on last week's show, they're 4-4 now. Last week they were 3-4. I think 8-4 is realistic for this team. Their only losses have been those top teams at the top, and Utah, when Utah had a healthy
8-4 propaganda, 8-4 propaganda, baby.
Right.
8-4.
Get on the bandwagon now. 8-4 Baylor Bears. But because we were at that game, we did not get to see much of the Texas game. I tried to pull it up on my phone as we were leaving the stadium to watch a little bit of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So it's one game, the Texas-Vanderbilt game. I don't really have a good feel for that one. So I can't really speak to it. I think it was important for Texas to get that win, though, just to kind of get all the mess of the Georgia game behind them. Because I think if Texas would have lost, I think they would really been rattled. And honestly, Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt isn't a tough out anymore. And Auburn's going to find this out this week. I saw Hugh Freeze had a quote today. Vanderbilt plays Auburn this week, and Hugh Freeze said he was tired of seeing Diego. That was a good win for Texas. I think it kind of helped them just clean out the system a little bit, help them maybe move forward and be ready for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. I think it kind of just shout out to Vanderbilt for not sucking. They seem to be playing pretty well, except for that Georgia State game. I don't know what happened there. in hindsight, that seems kind of nuts. But yeah, I think it also just shows like the top of the sport is closer to the pack than it normally is, with the possible exception of Oregon, who has obliterated 2 teams in a row. They stomped on Illinois this week, and that was supposed to be like, I don't know, maybe Illinois has a chance. It's a ranked matchup, good defense. No, nothing, nada. Oregon said, sit down. This is the big boys club, and you're not in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's most impressive is, when they beat Ohio State, you said, okay, this is a good team. And then the next 2 weeks, they've taken care of business. They've done a good job with it. And to me, that's a sign of a true champion. That's a team that's on a mission. I think they're healthy, which they weren't healthy earlier in the year.
Yep.
Clearly, our offense is clicking. And while I don't believe Dylan Gabriel has that strong of an arm, I think he's doing enough in that offense to look good and get the ball to where he needs to with those receivers.
He makes good decisions.
He does. So right now, they're a complete team. I mean, I think we've seen 2 teams that I know of that could win the 3 or 4 games necessary to win the championship. And that's probably Georgia and Oregon. I'm not quite convinced. There's maybe Texas is a third one that I think could probably do it. But beyond that, I'm not sure there's other teams that could win. They'll have to win either 3 or 4 games to win a national championship. I'm not sure Ohio State would have been on that list, but I'm starting to waver a little bit on them.
Yeah, if you look at it, both Texas and Ohio State had similar down weeks after their loss. Oregon's was 2 weeks ago, but they kind of had struggled with decent teams that have been towards the bottom of their conferences for a little while. Oregon looks like a machine. Dan Lanning has them looking like, a top team of old. They're not the gimmicky fun team anymore. They're the beast team. They're the team to be feared.
Yeah. So, and we'll probably do one of these Wednesday nights coming up here. Maybe not this week, maybe the next week. We're going to start breaking down some playoff thoughts and everything, but we'll do that soon here. First, maybe after there's playoff rankings come out, maybe we'll do a show and kind of talk about the rankings and talk about what we see. Good win for Auburn after losing 4 in a row and losing a couple of tough ones in a row, especially against ranked teams. They were able to beat Kentucky. Everybody's beating Kentucky this year, so what does that really say? But at least they got a good win.
It's a quality win. They beat an SEC team.
They need to beat Vanderbilt this weekend. They then need to beat Louisiana Monroe to qualify for a bowl. That would get them, 3-5? No, that's not going to get them there. Then they either need to beat Alabama or A&M. So I'm not sure we're going to get to a bowl game this year, Tigers. It's going to be tough.
I don't know.
But could they have a surprise if Texas A&M doesn't show up offensively and they travel? You're not in Kyle Field. You never know what Texas A&M team's going to show up. So but good win for the Auburn Tigers. I talked about Penn State, and we had a little bit of hiccup. They went on the road to Wisconsin, not an easy place to play. Struggled a little bit for the first half. Was down in halftime. Was even struggling in the third quarter. Finally got an interception midway through the third. Kind of turned the tide of that game. Ended up winning, but as part of that game, Drew Aller injury. Backup came in and did a good job. But now we're wondering who's going to play this week.
Yeah.
We're going to know until later this week, really, who's going to be the quarterback.
Yeah, I don't really know the injury updates on that, but man, that's killer. Losing if you don't have him, even if he's not 100% for the Ohio State game, that's your big at home. It's probably gonna. Is it a whiteout? I don't know. It's not at night, but they might still try it anyway. I don't keep up with Penn State's marketing.
Now the backup, Bo Privlia, he was actually better than Jordan.
Pretty well, didn't he?
He was 84% completion rate.
Yeah.
So there's already rumblings. Maybe he's better. Everybody loves the backup quarterback.
Oh yeah, everybody loves the backup until he's the starter.
Yeah. So.
I want to also just touch on real quick. SMU beat Duke in overtime. Duke now down to 2 losses. SMU with the 1 loss there. That was I didn't really catch that game, but SMU survives. Duke, I guess they've been playing pretty well under Manny Diaz, like at least playing decent defense. I know with a barren roster talent wise, kudos to Manny Diaz for getting them to play hard. And so, I mean, 6-2. That's, if you're a Duke fan, that's better than anything you've been expecting. And of course, SMU's thrilled and got that big matchup with Pitt this weekend. So,
yeah. I think anything is probably better, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So,
yep. Do you want to talk about AP poll or Heisman race or anything?
Well, I mean, AP poll, I don't really know what to think of the AP poll. I mean, it's is what it is.
Idiots.
Notre Dame gets too much respect. Dropped 2 spots. Didn't do anything last week. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't get that.
About that.
It doesn't make any sense, but here we are.
No.
Heisman, I still think it's a 2-man race. It's Genty or Hunter.
No.
I don't think.
No. Cam Ward is the front runner.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think Hunter.
I think Cam Ward's going to lose his luster because they don't have any good games left. So I just think he's going to drop off because he won't have marquee matchups for the end of the season. That's just kind of my forward-looking prediction.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of all I got. A little bit of a shorter episode.
Yeah.
But
so, well, we get to watch some many games this week, but we'll be back on 2 nights from now. I think Wednesday night. We'll do a preview for this coming week. Now we're getting to October. Some matchups really matter. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll preview those. So.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure leave a like and a comment and subscribe to the channel. Follow on all the socials, Real Hopster on X, The Hoppy Huddle on Instagram. We're at 99 followers, so if we can just get one more, we'll be at 100, which would be awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching, and good night, Greenland.
Thank you.